Welcome back, adventurer. This week's creatures have been described as a hippo that steals children with music, half a vampire, and a spider just looking for love. So come, pull up a stool at Creature Tavern. Welcome back, adventurer, and thanks for stopping by. While we get a pint for your table, allow me to begin today's chatter with the story of the Nixie from Scandinavian folklore. That's its most common name, though many folk know him by a few others. You've got Nix, Neck, and Nicker, to name a few. These creatures have a way of popping up in the history books of many other regions across the globe. Germanic and Icelandic, for example. They're classified as a type of water cryptid, though what subspecies exactly is hard to say. Heard folks call them water elves, water spirits, water nymphs, and even mermaids. Seems no one can agree exactly what they are, just that they're always tied to the water. The appearance of a Nixie varies wildly depending on who you ask, especially among the male variety. This makes their true appearance a difficult thing to draw. However, some consistent features and depictions emerge if you read enough lore. Nixies may appear human, definitely from afar, but once you get a little closer, you'll start to notice some subtle differences. They don't quite sit right with you, like a slit in their ear, or possibly even a wet skirt. In some fables, their eyes are wide and flat, like you'll see on a fish, or they'll have webbed hands and feet. Their hair and skin are said by some to take on a green or blue hue. One fella, a few weeks back, described a Nixie he saw resembling an old human woman with green teeth, green skin, and green hair. Not too dissimilar to Jenny Greenteeth, we spoke about in a previous visit. Male Nixies are sometimes depicted as elegant men, and they'll either be seen in fine clothing or completely stark naked. There's no half measures with this lot. Often said to be playing the violin. In some accounts, they've taken on unusual forms like a horse. Even had some folks reference one appearing similar to a hippopotamus. So if a running with a hippo that's also a trained violinist tickles your fancy, then unsurprisingly, you'll want to mark all the water points on your map and set in search. They adore the wet stuff, with folks telling me they've spied a Nixie in rivers, brooks, ponds, streams. Seems like pretty much anything greater than a puddle will do. And I heard at least one account of a Nixie that lived off in a town away from the water, but it seems they don't live too happy when they're on the dry for long. Nixies are deeply associated with music, song and dancing, which they like to use as a powerful means of seduction and entrapment. Kinda like sirens, the female Nixie uses her voice to lure fishermen and boatmen towards her dangerous reefs, drawing them in with an enchanting sound, before pulling them off and into the depths for a lovely spotted drowning. The females are especially dangerous if you're young, as it seems that's their preferred meal. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the male Nixies, them too are bound to music. They've got that violin, using its melody to attract women and children, like moths to a flame. And when they're close enough, they're seized by this muggy musician, and just like the fishermen, they're drowned too. Law states their music holds a particular allure for pregnant women and unbaptized children. And folks ain't too sure if this is because they're a particular delicacy, or just that the music takes a special hold over this state of human. However, in my research, I came across a canny rare tradition that says if a person offers the Nix a gift, in particular 3 drops of blood, doesn't say whose, a black animal, could be a bird, cat, skunk, really whatever you've got, and some Brennivin, that's a lovely Icelandic spirit also referred to as Black Death, or a type of wet snuff known as snus, the Nixie might just teach you to play your violin with supernatural skill. that's said to make even trees dance and waterfalls pause in response. A canny power to have. And it ain't just music in the Nixie armory. They're also skilled shapeshifters, especially in the male form. They can assume a wide variety of shapes, including human, fish, snake, and horse, as well as some rather unique forms we haven't seen before in the tavern, like treasure, or floating objects. Those last two are designed, I suspect, to lure unsuspecting victims near the water's edge for an easy grappling. The female Nixie, while less prone to such varied shapeshifting, is typically described as having the tail of a fish to further reinforce her aquatic identity. And in some stories, Nixies display vocal mimicry as well, especially the sound of a crying child. They've got that one down to a perfect art. They'll use this impressive impersonation to evoke sympathy among folks walking by the local waterways, drawing them in close before lunging out and pulling them below. They're also known to be easily angered, and that throwing stones into the water is seen by them as provocation. And in retaliation, Nixie may just conjure up a fierce wind, because of course, they have the power to control the weather. Lore says they can run up all sorts of stormy trouble. But I gotta say, there's one talent I didn't expect a Nixie to have. It's like a kind of clairvoyance. These stories I've seen say Nixie will walk into a specific spot in their lake, release a single, devastating scream, and then walk off. Later that day, at the exact same spot, a drowning will occur, entirely naturally. This most unusual behaviour suggests a connection to preordained death, perhaps. However, Nixies aren't always out singing. They've got a favourite night for that. Thursdays. Like us here at the tavern, seems they know that's the spookiest night of the week. And not only that, their presence also seems to be seasonal. Folks said Nixie tend to be most active during Midsummer's Night and on Christmas Eve. Personally, I'm more of a Halloween guy myself. But Nixie, they just can't seem to stay away from the tinsel and lights. Or maybe it's that alluring smell that tempts all fish. A freshly baked Christmas pudding. And speaking of fish, Nixie have another thing in common with them. A strong emotional dependence on water. And from what I've read, they're said to grow despondent if they don't have free and regular contact with the soggy stuff. This connection appears to influence both their temperament and vitality. Something to bear in mind if you ever stumble into an encounter. They sound pretty dangerous, and they are, especially once the music's taken hold of you. But if you're quick or lucky, you might escape with your pants dry. I briefly mentioned this earlier, but you can always tell if you're speaking with a Nixie by the perpetually moist clothing. It could be the sunniest day and the driest heat you've ever experienced, and their garments will remain saturated. In this case, you could act appropriately confident that you're dealing with a Nixie. This trick doesn't work on rainy days, mind, for obvious reasons. Or if you're able, get a Nixie to fall in love with you. In every tale I read, the lovesick never drown. So you can say goodbye to that possibility and hello to a fast-moving relationship. As the Nixie will in all likelihood move in with you almost immediately. And just as you begin to realise your love was true all along, they'll slink off in the night back to their waters. If you remember what I said earlier, without constant access to water, Nixie grow melancholy. It seems their heart belongs to the lake, and yours, well, it's probably broken. But at least you ain't sleeping in wet sheets anymore. And speaking of wet sheets, I've got something to throw on the line. It's definitely not what you're thinking, though. Hello again, listener. It is your author, Tavernkeeper, best friend and baker here. Thank you for listening to episode 14 of Creature Tavern. First of all, congratulations for sticking around till you reached the first ad break. You're now a member of the Top Listeners Club, and I really appreciate that. If you've been here before, you know what's about to happen, and if you're not, then buckle in for this mediocre ride. If you share the show using the hashtag Creature Tavern on Blue Sky Rex, you could very well feature in the show, and you can be whatever it is your imagination desires. Perhaps you're some sort of mythical dragon princess who's arrived at this humble little tavern to evade the knight, because in this story, the knight's the bad guy. Or maybe you're something else. Your wish is my command on that one, or I can just freestyle it perfectly, like I just did that. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing, this quality content, why not tell a friend? Or tell a family member? Tell your dog. Scream it from the rooftops. This tavern has got zero budget for advertising. It's just not there. It's gone. Sorry. It's entirely up to you now. I am approaching you once again with my hat in hand, asking for your support. Alright, that's enough freestyle for now. Let's return to the wonder that is the tavern. Good thing it's a hot one today. It'll help with those sheets and help you catch a Nixie. But you'll have to wait for nightfall to encounter the true terror of our next creature, the Manananggal, from Filipino folklore. The name Manananggal is derived from the Filipino word langgal, meaning to remove, to separate, or to detach. This etymology reflects the creature's most defining characteristic, its ability to separate its upper torso from its lower. Yes, you heard me right. This creature splits itself right at the waist, and we'll cover that more in just a minute. First, according to law, Manananggal are considered a type of aswang, a broader Filipino folklore category that encompasses demons, ghouls, and witches. And this classification places Manananggal among some of the most feared and supernatural entities in all of the Philippines. Rumoured to have roamed this mortal coil since at least 1582, this terror has been haunting folks for centuries. The Manananggal's appearance changes quite dramatically between day and night. It's a dual-natured creature, and a rather deceptive one at that. By day, it's portrayed as just the most beautiful woman one could ever lay eyes on. And this glowing facade allows it to blend in with ordinary society, masking its true, monstrous identity. By night, it transforms into a fearsome, grotesque creature. Although earlier, I mentioned this creature falls under the umbrella term of aswang, but it's most commonly described as a subspecies of vampire. Manananggal are said to share a good few of these common traits, such as elongated canine fangs and large membrane wings. Folks say these wings enhance the terrifying nightmarish presence. It not only allows the beast to take to the skies, but the shadows they cast are known to inject fear into the hearts of any unfortunate souls unlucky enough to walk into them. Though most often female, there have been rare sightings of a male variant, and this suggests that the phenomenon is not exclusive to one gender. So keep your eyes peeled for beautiful men as well, adventurer. You don't want to get caught off guard with this one. Legend of the Manananggal is widely recognised in the Visayan regions of the Philippines. If you get your map out again, I'll mark the spots. You'll want to be extra alert in the western province of Capiz, Iloilo, Bohol, and Antique. Legends say that's where most of the sightings occur, but if you've only got time for one, then I'd recommend Capiz. From what I've read, that's where the majority of sightings occur. It seems it's a focal point for Manananggal. But where do Manananggal come from, I hear you ask? Well, a woman can become a Manananggal through several disturbing methods. One commonly spoken about origin is the result of a curse, usually tied to the commission of grave sins. Though the specific curse seems lost to time, as no document I was able to look at could say what it was. A more elaborate metamorphosis involves a dark ritual carried out under a full moon. In this practice, a current, usually senior Manananggal, prepares a potion made from bat wings, charred fetus remains, animal blood, bile, or innards from an existing Manananggal, combined with an enchanted coconut oil. When a woman consumes this mixture, she is transformed into a Manananggal. An older and more arcane tradition describes a variation of that ritual. In this version, a woman becomes a Manananggal by eating a baby black chicken, produced by the current Manananggal. And the chick isn't laid as an egg, but instead regurgitated whole by the current Manananggal. It's described as having black, oily feathers, 0 eyes, a cold, clammy body, and a heart that beats with an unnatural rhythm. In their human form, Manananggal are capable of living rather normal lives, with the ability to perform all the functions of a regular human woman, including sex and childbirth. And this, dear adventurer, is the final way one becomes a Manananggal. The curse is passed down the bloodline, but with this method, the change isn't immediate. The curse lies dormant in the offspring, only activating if at least one of 3 conditions are met. The child undergoes puberty, the child suffers a traumatic event, or the parent Manananggal dies. Once they're converted, you'll find the Manananggal's most notorious ability to be the power of separation. A Manananggal will sprout 2 large bat wings from her back, and as they begin to flap, her torso will detach from her legs and begin to elevate. Higher and higher, her intestines will hang and dangle from the exposed break point, and once she takes flight, there won't be any cleanup either. Her entrails will simply remain, like a bloody pink set of tentacles, waving in the wind as she searches the night sky for her victims. If you want to catch this gory human kite, you'll want to head out at night, as the Manananggal personality we're interested in are entirely nocturnal. And if you want in bait, then you'll need to get your hands on a pregnant woman, as they're the preferred prey. First thing to note is the Manananggal only ever feed on sleeping victims. Once they spy a tasty pregnant lady, they'll fly low, spying through whatever cracks or windows it can find to ensure their dinner's asleep, then using its elongated, proboscis-like tongue, they'll slip it through any open window, knocking off the latch and allowing them entry. So careful if you like a little breeze when you sleep. Now with the infiltration phase done, Manananggal begin to feed, using that unnervingly long tongue to extract fetuses, most often targeting the fetal heart. At this point, I bet you're thinking you'd just wake up. Well, according to the law, Manananggal are careful not to wake their sleeping victims. With surgical precision, they're able to select the least intrusive entry point. Could be through your ears. Or maybe she slips in under your eyeball, in the nose, mouth, or through some lower body openings. And her taste is not limited to pregnant women. Folks tell me Manananggal are also open to trying the flavours of a newborn child, newlyweds, lovers, and the odd groom who's been jilted at the altar. On these diets, when there aren't any fetuses available, Manananggal are said to consume adult organs. And it doesn't sound like she's too picky with these either. I've seen records that state she'll happily chow down on hearts, lungs, liver and intestines. They've also been known to feed on bodily fluids too, phlegm and bile ranking top on her favourites for this menu. But some folks tell me Manananggal will drink any and all fluids you got. However, in these cases, it's typically only from the sick and elderly. So if you've got a cough in your 20s, you might just lose an organ. Despite the gruesome nature of all these acts, Manananggal never seemed to leave any external marks on her victims. You might not even know you've been part of this monster's diet, unless she's eaten your heart, or your lungs. There might be a slight giveaway with that one. So how can you prevent yourself from appearing on this very exclusive menu? First things first, if you notice half a Batwoman flying round with her entrails exposed, then you'll want to find her lower half, and quick. See if a Manananggal fails to make her half whole before first light, she'll die. And to achieve this, you can do a few things. You could nick her legs and run. You could throw them in a bush and hope she doesn't see where you hit them. Or like the more obvious European vampire, Manananggals are violently allergic to the following: salt, garlic, ash, vinegar, fire, and holy water. If you rub any of these on the connection point of her lower half, they'll prevent the rebonding process. Careful with this one though. Manananggal aren't stupid. They're well aware of this vulnerability and are known to hide their legs while their top half's out on the town. So bring a lookout if you fancy playing hide and seek with a detached pair of monster legs. Another similarity with the common vampire is the Manananggal's extremely bad reaction to sunlight. This is only going to work on the night form though, but if you can distract it for long enough, or get it to chase you eastward, you should be able to burn that bitch up. I also found a rather unusual story of a Manananggal's fear of stingrays, specifically their tails. Apparently people would fashion these into daggers, and they really don't think that's cool. But if you're a bit more proactive, there's a few methods of reversal if you happen to witness a Manananggal's transformation ritual. If you're dealing with the black chick ceremony, then you've got to destroy the baby bird before it matures inside the new host. This method does come with a few hurdles, mind. First, let's get the chick out without harming the person who swallowed it. Best approach I found is to feed them something so foul they vomit everything up. Or you could grab them by their ankles and spin them round. Just careful not to spin them for too long. Wouldn't want all their blood flooding their brain. Whichever method you choose, just make sure you approach the situation with calm in your heart. As that baby chick wasn't just dinner. It's said to be a sentient parasite. And if it senses danger, they're known to take control of their host and kill them before you kill it. If you're dealing with the potion route, that's a little easier. But there is a clock. You'll need to slay the elder Manananggal that made the brew, and within the lunar cycle the ritual took place under. But with this one, the person that took the drink must be the one to land the killing blow. And if you or someone you know has a Manananggal as a parent, you're screwed. Some documents say that bathing in spring water, blessed by moonlight, or taking a 7-day fast in a mountain shrine might work, but it's not as easy to rid when it's your own blood. If you're successful in this endeavour, the curse is said to only be silenced, not exorcised. It'll never truly leave, and you must stay away from consuming blood and meat for the rest of your days, lest the curse reawaken. And speaking of consuming meat, you fancy a little creature pie? No, I won't say what's in it. You'll have to guess. Welcome back to the Void, listener. Thanks for sticking around. It means a lot that you'd last this long. 2 or 3 creatures down. Well done to you. To show you made it this far, why not hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to the show? You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere EQ emus make their nests. Just search for Creature Tavern. And while you're that close to it all, why not leave us a review? Tell me what I got wrong, if anything, because I don't guarantee that I've managed to get everything correct, but I do try. Let me know. Let me know what you think. That's enough of this, whatever it is. There's no more. No more breaks. It's all Tavern all the way home, baby. And speaking of the Tavern, let's get you sat. Yeah, that's right. Let's get you sat back down. Did you get it? Not yet. Well, while you're trying to land the flavour, I'll crack on with our final creature for the week, the Jorogumo, from Japanese folklore. The term Jorogumo is written using multiple sets of kanji, each reflecting a different facet of this creature's identity. Folks tell me the most direct reading means woman spider. In this telling, Joro stands for courtesan or prostitute, particularly ones associated with the pleasure quarters of old Japan. And Gumo simply means spider, resulting in a name that translates roughly to prostitute spider or courtesan spider, though they ain't the only titles you'll hear. Found an alternative writing that translates Jorogumo to entangled newlywed woman. But some folks say that's a misinterpretation, claiming the actual reading is closer to entangling bride or binding woman. Jorogumo are said to have first appeared in Japan during the Edo period, which is about 1603 to 1868, where her infamous legend became known among the locals through the use of woodblock prints, kabuki plays, and a handy yokai encyclopedia. Fun fact, the name Jorogumo is also used to reference an actual true species of spider. When out looking for a Jorogumo, you best know they come in a few shapes, each with varying degrees of humanity, slowly corrupted by its spider features. Most famously, she can take on the appearance of a very beautiful woman, often with no visible indication of her true identity. This form is used to seduce, lure and manipulate her victims into thinking she's their wife, or in one case I read, the Jorogumo in her beautiful woman form also had a baby, and she used this elaborate disguise to play on folks' empathy, making them think they were helping out a poor single mother, only for the Jorogumo to reveal her true arachnid form. And her baby, well, that was her egg sac, wriggling with developing little baby spiders. In other versions, she appears as that beautiful woman again, but with numerous spider legs poking out from her back. And some depictions go even further, showing her in a centaur-like form, with an upper body that's the beautiful woman figure, fused to the lower body and legs of a great big spider. And arguably her most terrifying, Jorogumo take the form of a giant spider, with a white body covered in a spotted yellow pattern, with long, thin legs striped in black and yellow. To find one of these nightmare centaurs, you'll want to check out any and all caves, forests, and empty homes in the many towns and cities of Japan. That's where they're said to make their nests. Some legends specifically name Izu as a popular location for Jorogumo. It's a peninsula located in the Shizuoka prefecture of Japan's main island, Honshu. It's a well-known spot for hot springs, so you can have a little soak while you're there. Might help you relax after the terrifying encounter, if you survive. So where did Jorogumo spawn from? Well, when a golden orb weaver spider reaches the grand old age of 400, it gains magical powers, including that ability to shapeshift we touched on earlier. Now this 8-legged freak can transform into a far more seductive figure. Jorogumo use their beauty and charm to trick and lure men, typically young, handsome bachelors searching for love. They lure them into a false sense of safety and intimacy, and once she's gained their favour and trust, or got them hooked on her looks, she'll lead them into her isolated space. Folks usually describe this as her quiet shack, where she begins to play a biwa, which is a traditional Japanese lute. And as the lovesick victim becomes entranced by the seductive sounds, she silently begins to bind him in her spider silk, setting the stage for this slow, inevitable consumption. You might think suddenly having your limbs bound would alert you to the looming doom, but the Jorogumo's talent for stealth is beyond exceptional. She's able to seduce and trap men without leaving any obvious trace, and she's even better at hiding the bodies. Legends say Jorogumo can continue this cycle for years, without drawing any suspicion from a single neighbour. Victims vanish, never to be seen again, while the skeletons quietly pile up in her lair. But if you're more switched on than the Jorogumo's ex-lover, the silk spun by this creature is described by folks as incredibly strong. Strong enough to bind any man with ease. So you're not likely to break free. But maybe you can make a hop for it. All you gotta do is throw your body out the window. That'll cause enough commotion to save you from becoming dinner. Well, the Jorogumo's thought of that. You're heading to first base. But instead of a kiss, you're getting venom injected into your veins. And now you're totally screwed. Working day by day, the venom will break down your strength, leading to a long, pretty painful death. Hopefully she'll keep playing her loop mind. At least that way you won't die of boredom. Speaking with folks, I found that Jorogumo also have the ability to control lesser spiders, many of which serve as an extension of her will. And in a surprise twist, I also found lore that states Jorogumo can command small, fire-breathing spiders as well. Sometimes, this detail about the fire-breathing spiders, well, they turn out to be her children. But others say they're just random spiders that happen to also breathe fire. She's said to send these out to burn down the homes of anyone who becomes suspicious of her activities. Which will work to get that noisy neighbour out of your business. But if you suspect someone of being a giant spider, and the next day a bunch of fire-breathing spiders burn down your home, I mean, that's awfully suspect to me. And speaking of her offspring, these juvenile spiders typically measure 2 to 3 centimetres in body length, but can grow significantly larger. They're capable of capturing and devouring small birds, and they're unnaturally coloured, often coated in vibrant, bright hues. In summary, Jorogumo live solitary lives. They operate alone, preferring deception to direct action. And despite being predatory, they're nowhere near mindless beasts. The law says they're highly intelligent, fully aware of their actions, and driven by strategy and desire. They view humans as nothing more than insects, feeding on them without remorse or hesitation. And before you say anything, spiders aren't technically insects, they're arachnids. The key is to look at the legs. Arachnids got 8, insects, they got 6. The Jorogumo is a cunning seductress, but she's not invincible. So heed this advice, and you may not end up as husband number 7. If you're female, you're fine. Jorogumo don't give a second glance to women, so happy hunting. Just be sure not to take any poison with you. It's said poison of any kind cannot kill Jorogumo. So sorry to all the rogues out there. If you're near water, or you've got a mirror handy, use them. Folks say a reflection will reveal its true spider form. And in Izu, there's a story of a man who was resting at the foot of a waterfall when his feet were bound with a vast number of spider threads. To free himself, he cut the threads and tied them to a tree stump, which was pulled from the ground and drawn into the waters. So it looks like these webs might be susceptible to blades. Just make sure you're quick and calm enough, and you might be able to get yourself loose. So long as your arms ain't bound. A variation of this tale says the logger had fallen in love with the Jorogumo, in her human form of course, but he kept growing weaker and weaker with each visit. So one day he brought a monk along with him, and this is when the spider's threads started to appear in the water, in an attempt to wrap up the monk. They were just about to reach him, when the monk shouts his Buddhist chant, and the silk disappears. So make sure you've got a monk in the party. And with that, we're finished with our last creature for the week. We've learned that a few drops of blood and a shot of spirit will make you a world-class violinist. A little seasoning can save your life, and if your date's gifted with the lute, maybe check her reflection before going back for coffee. Now that bell means it's last call here at Creature Tavern. So grab yourself one more drink for the road. And until next time, tread carefully, adventurer. You never know when you might wander into the weird